This is your last investigations lesson, and this one is on the importance of ethical issues in psychological research. You need to know what the ethical issues are and how to overcome them. Now, obviously, when we're thinking about ethical issues, such as giving participants informed consent, we need to think about the impact that such ethical issues will have upon the reliability, the validity and the usefulness of your study. So these are the areas you need to think about whenever you are being asked to evaluate a study in relation to ethical issues. If you think about Milgram, for example, he couldn't give participants informed consent because if they knew the true nature of the study, then it would affect the validity, because they may have chosen to go right up to the end of the scale whenever they were giving the electric shocks, because they knew that they weren't real and that the whole thing was a setup and it wasn't really a learner who was getting electric shocks. So therefore the validity would have been affected, and it was necessary for him to deceive his participants. One of the main ethical issues is protection from physical harm, i.e. you shouldn't do anything to your participants that will harm them physically. And basically your participants should leave your study in the same physical state in which they entered it. I want you to pause the video and think of other issues, other ethical issues which you need to consider. So the other ethical issues that you probably would need to consider are you're going to protect them from psychological harm. You're not going to stress or distress them in any way. Now obviously Milgram did do that, but he did ensure that they were debriefed afterwards so that they knew that the learner was not receiving any electrical shocks. Another main ethical issue is deception, confidentiality, ensuring that participants' identities are not revealed, and also that you are using their information in a responsible way and you're not giving away any of their personal details. What we're going to think about next are how would we address these issues, and we're going to think about these in relation to the 15 core studies which you've looked at. The British Psychological Society has a set of ethical guidelines that everybody who's carrying out psychological research in the UK must follow. These guidelines can be summarised in 4 main terms: showing respect to your participants, acting in a competent and professional way, acting with integrity or honesty, and also showing responsibility towards the profession of psychology and towards your participants. These ethical statements can be related to informed consent, ensuring that participants have the right to withdraw, ensuring that participants' data is kept confidential, and also that they are protected from harm. What I want you to do here are just write down the names of 3 key core studies which break ethical guidelines. So your first example could be Milgram's study. There was no informed consent. Participants were self-selected and they did volunteer to take part in the study, but they were deceived as to the true nature of the study and were told that it was a study on punishment on learning. So therefore they were deceived, and if you deceive participants, they cannot give informed consent. Informed consent can only be given when you fully understand the aim of the research. So if you write down 2 other core studies which broke ethical guidelines and briefly summarise what they were. You may be asked in the core studies paper on ethical issues in section B, and we're going to look now at questions C and D, which are both worth 6 marks. A typical question C in relation to ethical issues would be as follows: describe 2 ethical issues raised by one of your chosen studies. Remember, in section B they list 3 studies and you choose one of them. So in relation to being asked this question for Rosenham, Bandura and Piliavan, if you look at the mark scheme here, you'll see that the issues which were broken were mainly consent and deception. And you get 3 marks for fully describing and accurately describing the ethical issue and giving examples from the study. So 3 marks for the ethical issue, and then another 3 marks for examples from the study to get your full 6 marks. A typical question D would be, with reference to your chosen study, explain one reason why researchers needed to break ethical guidelines and one reason why they should not have done so. So there are two parts to this question. So you're giving a reason why they had to break the ethical guidelines, and then the second part is a reason why they shouldn't have done so. And here's the mark scheme for that question. So take time to read through this. For first 3 marks, you describe why the researcher needed to break the ethical guidelines. You describe it in an accurate way with elaboration, with clear links to the study. So you're providing lots of details from the study of what the ethical guideline was and how they broke it. And then your second 3 marks are describing why they should not be broken. So for example, why should you not deceive participants? What effect can it have on them? And again, give examples from the study. So please take time to read through the mark scheme here. Now what we're going to do tomorrow is as follows. We're going to look at the question E, which is suggest how your chosen study could be made more ethical, and this is 8 marks. So not Rosenhan, not Paliavin, and not Bandura. You can choose any other one that you want tomorrow. And again, take time here to read the mark scheme. Now I would like in class tomorrow for us to answer this question in relation to, you can choose any other study but not the 3 that are listed on the previous page. And this is the mark scheme I will be using to mark it with. You can see there for 78 marks, the high band mark, you have to have 2 changes. So if you only have 1 change, you'll see there that you fall into the 1 to 3 or 4 to 6 mark band. So obviously you want to get into the top one, so you need 2 changes. And you need to use psychological terminology, and it has to be well organised and grammatically correct, and obviously with supporting evidence from your study. The next question we will do, I want you to do this tomorrow with the same study that you did for E. So outline the implications of the ethical changes you have suggested for your chosen study. Implications means how is that going to affect the validity, the reliability, the usefulness, the generalizability, etc. of the findings. And again, here we have the mark scheme. Answers are likely to refer to getting informed consent, which could lead to demand characteristics or socially desirable responses. Informed consent could reduce stress but may not lead to valid responses. Debriefing participants may make them feel better or salve their consciousness. And you can relate those as well to validity, reliability, etc. And again, to get up in the top mark band, you need to be very accurate. You need to be relating your implications to the study, and you need to have 2 or more. So that's what I want you to be proud to do tomorrow. And this was your last online lesson, and remember you can look back on any of these as part of your revision. And I apologise for the small child wailing mummy in the background. These things are unavoidable.